Collaborative world building is the foundation in Unknown Worlds, a new TTRPG available on BackerKit. I talk with the creators about their game and the world building that is crucial to it. With 3 different settings, launching with the core rules, just add your imagination and make them come to life. That interview starts now. Paul and Jennifer, how are you?
We're good. We're really good. Thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you both. And you are crunch time right now because your backer kit launches in 3 days, and you have a convention full of stuff that you have to do here this week. But you have a TTRPG that is coming out right now. It comes with a core book of skills and then some settings, kind of like just add imagination to help you build your own adventure, correct?
Yeah, that's actually a really nice way of putting it. And we're going to steal that.
There are 3 different settings you're kind of launching with your core rules. Why don't you tell me what your tabletop role-playing game is about? What differentiates it from what people would think of as like a D&D? And what are your favorite things about it?
So I think that the thing that differentiates it, right? The thing that it's about is it's highly narrative. There's a lot of cooperative world building and narration that happens built into the rules. So there's session 0, you literally build whatever setting you're going to be playing in. There's a lot of help and guidance, obviously, but the game guide and the players all work together to tell really cool stories and build worlds together and, just have a lot of fun. The line between game guide and player in this game is very thin. There's a lot of stories will come from players and they'll run with it. And, some nights, when we're deep into it, some nights it's not clear who the game guide is at that moment. People are just, sort of improvising their stories and, leaning on the rules when they need to for that. But it's definitely a group game. It's really meant to sort of thrive in that environment of collaboration. And so overall, though, the core of it, the unknown worlds part of it, is the idea that whatever world you're in, there's this hidden world of magic as well, right? So in the 1980s small towns, a very sort of Stranger Things, Stephen King kind of setting, where there's a lot of mystery and magic, wonder, right? That's the big 3 for that setting, I think. Almost very opposite that, we have a cottage core setting that is, you play as intelligent animals, mice and frogs and things, and the biggest threat is like how the blueberry harvest is going to come in this year because that log that we crossed washed out and we don't know how to get the blueberries back in time, for perfect ripeness. But it uses the same rules, right? The pillars system like powers this whole thing, and it is the same exact rules for all of these things, just skinned in different ways and built up in different ways. And then the third setting book is the Victorian horror set in Victorian London, 1860, and it's disturbing. When I run that one at cons, those are the nighttime games, and those are the ones where this game is for adults. It will be scary. It will be spooky.
Perfect for Halloween.
Exactly.
For Halloween.
Yeah. For Halloween. Yeah. I think my favorite thing about it, which is such an awesome question. Nobody ever asked that question. That's such a great thing to ask. Is that, everybody uses magic in this game. Everyone does it so differently. The magic system that Paul came up with it's really fluid and really varied, so that, the 6 people sit down at a table to write up characters, you're going to wind up with 6 very different characters. Can have someone who's sort of like the academic wizard in the pointy hat if you want to, but if you're like, I like punching stuff, right, then you can make somebody whose magic is about punching stuff, and that's going to work too. I was never a fan of the role-playing games where when you're a magic user, if you just like, you get a list of spells and you're like, I pick this spell off the list and then I roll and it worked, and we all know what's going to happen because it's the same every single time. Magic is really different in this game. Then you get to use your creativity and you get to come up with some surprising ways to use your magic. Paul likes to say it's a game of yes, if you can come up with something cool and it fits the story. The game guide is encouraged to say, like, yes, you can pull off that extremely wacky thing with your magic.
Well, that's awesome. I love the idea of collaborative world building. I think it's the way that I have done things in my games for a while now. In some respects, like I've been very restrained. I don't have the same we typically play in a D&D type universe, and so those there are constraints, obviously, and so there are some things that I've not been able to do within the kind of the, I guess, really as a dungeon master I could do anything I want, but I tend to look at things in a little bit more of a contained light. Collaborative world building is my favorite thing, and I love that you've built a game around that concept, because I think it is such it's a way to get people to it's instant immersion, B, it's instant investment too, because as you're coming up with the people and places that make up this universe that you're living in, you're eagerly waiting to see how the storyteller is going to weave your little NPC or your quirk or your story in with everybody else's. So it's almost very suspenseful at one point. So, but I love that. I love that. I think it's great.
We've really found in playtesting, and you don't know how it's going to go when you put something in the book. So we're like, let's try this thing where we playtested the 80s small town stuff first. And so we had all these rules and, note cards out, and let's build a little 80s town together. And the playtest groups, including some friends of ours who aren't really gamers, went nuts for that part. Like, honestly, that was just the part that people just like, what do you mean this is only like because we tried to make it quick so we could get to the gaming part, or they wanted to spend more time on the town. It was just really, I think that feeling that you have of enjoying that is it took us by surprise how universal that was and how excited people got about that part.
Yeah, it definitely gives the players agency in the game. So and I think when you're sitting there kibitzing about where the Blockbuster's at in town and who it's run by, and your backstory may be, I used to work there, but the owner used to stiff me on my pay, and all of a sudden he's come up dead. Oh no, what happened?
And all of a sudden your character has a history, and your character has some built-in relationships in the town and some places and people your character cares about. And you're right, it's a sort of instant immersion.
It's an instant investment, because in this day and age within gaming, the phone is the worst possible thing you can have. And the reason being is, people have D&D and Beyond up on their phone, or their character sheets up on their phone, or they're looking something up on their phone. That immediately pulls them out of the game. And so if you can keep people invested at the table and keep them away from their phones, it's a win-win. It's a very low bar, but it's very hard to achieve.
Right.
Yeah, it's harder to achieve as we go through the years, it seems, right? Like old folks like me remember the time when there were no cell phones at the tables, because those didn't exist yet.
Yeah. They're the good old days, we call it. So now this is all, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that was actually part of the reason we set it in the 80s to begin with. When we were coming up with the first setting, we were like, what do we need to remove from the modern world? And cell phones was like the answer to that.
They're the phones,
There's a lot more mystery in the world if you can't look everything up instantly, or geolocate whatever you need, or find your friend. So, no matter where they went. So yeah, I think
I never really thought about that. That's actually rather brilliant. I mean, eliminating that technology so that way it can't be used to, fast pass the game, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
This is I love everything I'm hearing. The core, you get the core rule book and 3 suggested settings. Obviously people can modify and change things as we do, but it should have something for everybody. And so all 3 of these books are launching together.
Yeah. That was a hard decision we made pretty late in the game. We were originally going to have 2 settings at launch, and then it's really a family affair. Like, both of our children are involved in the game making and in this, and everybody got so excited about the Cottage Core one. As we were talking about it, they were like, we need to launch with this.
We need the Cottage Core book
as well, because it really shows like a bigger variety, between just the 2. So yeah, it was only a couple of months ago that we decided we would push the Cottage Core up to launch now instead of, a year from now. The original plan was for it.
But I love it. I love the set of 3, even though it's causing a little havoc right now. It's all going to be ready in time, and it's going to be, the Cottage Core book is going to be really fun. And I have to say, if you're making a game and you can find some kids to borrow, or if you have your own, playtest with kids.
They are the best playtesters. Yeah.
My younger son's group came up with this whole concept of intelligent animals that can work magic. that created the idea for this kind of creature, which created the idea for, well, now they need their own setting. And now we need to make a Cottage Core book. And it all came from a bunch of silly kids sitting around a table, literally deciding how many squirrels could fit into a trench coat.
Well, I mean, you have to think about it. So there's I interviewed a gentleman a while back who goes by the name Redworm, but it's for this one reason. His son, he quotes on Twitter and talks about, some of the DM concepts, and it's he started when he was 4. So he's like DM concepts from a 4-year-old, and you're watching how this mind is working and how simplified things are, and you're going, why didn't I think of that? But they're not bound by structure. They're not bound by previous information. This is just a raw, visceral reaction to things. And so that's the reason watching children play any type of game to me is fantastic. Now, I'm not an educator. I have a lot of my friends who are, and I know one of you is at least. But gaming and education is a huge thing for me. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of role-playing games being used as teaching tools when it comes to learning being able to do certain things in a safe space. So I love role-playing games and education, and so I love hearing when kids are playing it. And by kids, let's get an age range of yours.
Right now, ours are 19 and 16.
Mm-hmm.
The Weans, the little creatures, I think came up when the kids who were playing were about 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there.
Yeah, we also had them playtest my first role-playing game that was also put out through Anvilate, but we weren't the owners of Anvilate at the time. It was called the Ethereum role-playing game, and it was all about, it's like this like sort of dark cyberpunk thing, but like when you log in, you can do anything, right? And you can, because you're in this computer world, and the kids were ridiculously creative and really helped me understand like that limits are dumb and we should just like create games that let the players do almost anything,
But I would be playing and I would be like, I think I'll make a door in that wall, and I thought I was real cool. And the kids would come up with like, I'm going to make an ice cream truck that shoot, I just like the things that they came up with. Like you said, they're unfettered, they're unrestrained. They're not worried about whether or not they're going to be perceived as cool or silly or whatever. They're just playing. And the imaginations just completely blew us away.
Yeah.
So we have some friends who are also educators, and we just had coffee with someone who is a teacher. She's a curriculum specialist and is going to a conference soon about bringing role play into the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's become a very popular topic, and we had talked about Gen Con briefly, but there was a booth dedicated toward gaming and education. And so some of these courses are actually being taught now, not only like game theory and things like that, but really delving into role playing as an educational vehicle. So
we do work with somebody. I don't know if you know Mana Oasis, but they're an organization that work with vets, and they do role playing games to work through trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, and they use gaming for that too. So which I just
games are powerful things, man.
They are. They're role playing games especially. I think that they're sometimes it's good for adults to forget everything that they know and just kind of move forward blindly into these creative worlds. So
and we encourage people in that session 0 to leave gaps, like all good literature has gaps. We want gaps in the town too. We don't want every building labeled and marked up.
Sure.
We want there to be room for stories later to be added, so that they're not just building the story at session 0 or building the setting at session 0 and going there. They're adding to the setting through their actions and through their campaign, so it's really fun. And unfortunately convention games don't have the capacity to really do that as much, because you can't keep people for 8 hours for one game, so you can't world build and run the game. So we've seen this a lot in playtests and people have fun with it, but at the conventions we typically do use the pre-made settings that are in the field guides. With some light changes, like I have them fill out like 1 or 2 cards and create 1 or 2 special characters, but we don't get into like the deep world building that goes on.
Sure.
People arguing over where the bridge should be over the river, and the awesome collaboration.
This street used to be a two-way street. Let's not get that granular.
Right.
Well, guys, I love what you're doing. I cannot wait to see it in print. I'm going to get a copy for myself so that way I can present it. I might get two because I have some friends of mine who are educators and very good friends / family. They are part of the reason why this channel exists. And Jeff and Sue, you know who you are. They are both educators or in education, and they run a gaming group at their local school there in Iowa. And so I think this might be a really interesting thing to try out with them. Well, I appreciate both of you coming on. I will have links down below to everything that you need to know about everything. Well, not everything, but everything about this game. And it will be on BackerKit shortly, and you'll be able to get it and enjoy it. And if you want to, comment down below how you feel about open or collaborative world building. Have you done that before? Do you long for that? If you have done it, then give us a little story. How about that? So, but Paul and Jennifer, thank you so much for being on, and I wish you the best of
For having us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is great.
Mhm.